All right. Welcome back to the Game or Die podcast. I am your host, Ryan Moore, and today is my birthday. Well, actually, it's not today. It was actually this weekend on Saturday. And I recorded a podcast, but unfortunately, I didn't get to upload it properly. So I kind of have to just re-record it, which is kind of a bummer, but that's the way it goes. So what I'm doing is I'm live streaming yet again for this episode of the Game or Die podcast. This is going to be episode 61. And I just wanted to talk about some games. I've been playing a lot of games. I have been in California. And I did not get to play as many games over the last couple of weeks as I would hope. But I am now fully done, fully ready to really invest some time into games. I actually did a little bit of the last few days because, well, I'll just get into it now. So before I went to California, earlier this last month, I was playing some games and I really wanted to get into, or I played Rollerdrome, which I talked about on the podcast last episode. And it's a really good game, but I just feel like there was a lot of stuff that could have been done better or even more. And I guess from what I've heard, I don't listen to a lot of gaming podcasts anymore just because they've gotten so off the deep end with their propaganda and media and all that I just don't care what they have to say anymore. And that's why I do this podcast. And I also do the Couch Cash Repeat podcast for our Couch Money Discord server, because both of those podcasts are about video games. And guess what? We talk about video games. Unlike a lot of gaming podcasts now, they are way more concerned about pushing media political agenda as opposed to just talking about the games. It has to be talked about, how they make them feel afraid or offended or whatever. So this is my podcast. I'm just going to talk about video games because that's what it's about. So when I was playing Rollerdrome, I was really enjoying it, but I felt like there was something missing. And it was really the core storyline experience where there was a nugget of a storyline there. And it was actually really interesting. I really cared about what was going on with that character and how she was basically trying to be manipulated by the governing body of the TV network and the company behind Rollerdrome as they were kind of becoming bigger and a more national sport. So that was really interesting to me, and I really liked that aspect. Unfortunately, they just didn't do a whole lot with it. So they kind of dropped the ball, and that was a big bummer. So I was really enjoying Rollerdrome, and I felt like there was a lot more that could have been explored with the story. And I noticed that Roll7 is the developer, and they actually put out a game earlier in the year called Ollie Ollie World. And it's the third game in the Ollie Ollie series. If you don't know what Ollie Ollie is, it's a skateboarding game. And it came out, the original first one came out at a time when skateboarding games weren't in the comeback that they are now. There is Skate XL, Session, the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remake, Ollie Ollie, and there's a couple other, games, Wave Break, I think it was, where it was basically Tony Hawk mechanics with a water is like a boat. And it's got a very 80s art style and art direction to it, which I thought I was going to like, and I just kind of hated it. It felt very shallow and trying too hard. Rollerdrome is also in that category too, because it's taking that Tony Hawk mechanic and applying it to roller skates, which there was a roller skating or rollerblading game back in the early 2000s called Aggressive Inline, which I actually played through back in like 2017, I believe, 2018. I really liked that game. I remember playing it as when it came out, and I really enjoyed it back then too, although a lot of the music is kind of a little bit harder to listen to because it is that that era of music. So you got bands like Hoobastank and Zebrahead and stuff like that in there, but it's also actually really enjoyable too. So whatever. But basically, they were the first ones. Roll 7 was the first ones to go, what happened to skateboarding games? We just stopped having them. Tony Hawk went on such a decline and just kind of almost salted the earth for skateboarding games for a while there. No one was making skateboarding games because Tony Hawk was the only one. And there was a lot of imitators when Tony Hawk got big. You had games like Grind Session, and I'm blanking on the other ones right now, but there was a few of them. Skates... Not well. Obviously, there was the Skate series as well that was on the 360, but there was another one. I'm really trying to think of it. It was on the original PlayStation console, and it was an arcade game. Street Skater, that's what it was. So Street Skater and Street Skater 2 on the original PlayStation. Tony Hawk. You also had the BMX version of Tony Hawk, which was Matt Hoffman. You also had Dave Mirra BMX. Like, the whole extreme sports was just so massive at a point, and it really feels like within the last decade or so, just they completely died out. And Ollie Ollie was that first game where it's like, we're making a skateboarding game where you flip, grind, and grab, but it's all 2D. And I really wanted to like Ollie Ollie when it first came out, but it was also at the time when indie games were getting really popular, and it was also at the time when indie games were getting really popular because they were masochistic. And what I mean by that is they were so hard. They were designed to be so frustratingly difficult. They coined the phrase NES hard. And basically that just means, hey, when you grew up playing NES games back in the 80s and 90s, like, they were just considered extremely, extremely hard games. And yes, they were, but these took it to a whole new level because everyone grew up, everyone became more accustomed with games, so the difficulty curve ramped up as well. And at some point, these games just ask so much of you, drain so much of your time, that I just started hating them. There was games that I appreciate them for what they are, but I also don't like how they really ask way too much of the person right up front. Games like Super Meat Boy is like the prime example of that, where it is so bleedingly hard that you don't have you cannot just progress through it at an even keel pace. It is instantly harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. And it just requires you to basically trial and error and memorize the landscape or the levels. And I just don't like that in games mostly. I do enjoy that sometimes, and especially over the last several years or so, I've gotten more accustomed to that style of gameplay. Also, I think because of the way that they're talked about, I think a lot of people do a really big disservice by talking about how difficult a game actually is. I experienced this firsthand with a game earlier this year, Elden Ring. I hate the Dark Souls series, and I will go on record until the day I die, I hate that series. But I did play Elden Ring, I did finish Elden Ring, and I did not think it was that difficult for the most part. Now, I did do a lot of grinding for souls to become more powerful, level up my weapons and things like that. But for the most part, and it's just because I am not that type of gung-ho type of person when it comes to those types of games. And with Elden Ring, it expanded so much that it just became a lot more fun to explore, and if I hit a wall, I moved on to the next thing. I've talked about it enough on this podcast, and I'll talk about it at the end of the year for sure, so I'm not going to talk more about Elden Ring. I want to get back to the game that I do want to talk about. So Ollie Ollie was more difficult than I think it needed to be, and it did a real big disservice to that game by saying, hey, this is super difficult. You grew up with that NES hard style, so here's a more harder adult version of that. And I just did not finish that game. The sequel came out a couple years later, Ollie Ollie World 2, or Ollie Ollie 2, and I think they there's some subtitle where it's talking about Hollywood or whatever. Ollywood, I think is what they call it. And that also is a pretty good game. And I got, I think, further in it, but I don't believe I finished that game either. And then this year they put out Ollie Ollie World. And then a couple months later, back in August, they put out Rollerdrome. So it was kind of weird that this company put out 2 games when big companies can't even put out 1 game a year now. It is crazy how big everything that has happened over the last couple of years has affected so much of the gaming industry. And I really think it was absolutely avoidable too. We should not be almost 3 years deep into this thing and having this big of an issue where every game is getting delayed for zero reason. These games should have been out months ago, and they're being postponed for no reason whatsoever that I can see. I want explanations of why they're delaying. There are several games where it is an absolute total understanding, but beyond those few, there's zero reason why 99% of the games that were supposed to come out this year are being delayed until 2023 for no foreseeable reason. Anyways, the game that I want to talk about that I played is Ollie Ollie World that came out earlier this year. And I was really excited for it because I wanted to play a new game, and it was, hey, a skateboarding game. I love skateboarding games. I hated it. I really, really hated it. It's one of those purchases that I bought. I bought it on sale on Green Man Gaming, and I think it was $17 or something. But man, I almost instantly hated that game, and it just stayed the course for the entire game, pretty much. There was some points where I just wanted to drop the controller and stop playing, and I didn't for whatever reason, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I can say, hey, it's one of the few games that came out this year that I played through. But other than that, man, this game, it really has the mentality and personality of a certain type of person out there now that I really, really don't like. And it really feels that it's trying way too hard to be quirky, way too hard to be in its writing, especially, that makes it come off as not modern and not... I'm trying to think of the correct way that I want to say this, but it doesn't come off as, hey, we're mature and we're progressive. It comes off as childish and juvenile, and it made me want to throw the controller. Not because I was mad and angry, because it was so stupid that I felt like I was losing brain cells. It is so dumb. And not in the fun way. It's all writing, and the writing is seriously feels like a 12-year-old wrote it. It feels like it is so shallow and so dumb and trying so hard to make a catchphrase that I just couldn't stand it. I'm a big story person in video games. That is what I love about video games. I love mechanics as well. And I love video games, period. It doesn't matter what the art style is, if it's cel-shaded or modern graphics. It doesn't matter if it is 8, 16, 32, or 64-bit. It doesn't matter if it is a current generation console or a 7th generation console or a 2nd generation console or a PC game or a console game. It doesn't matter. I love video games, and most video games appeal to me. But what I really, really enjoy more, the majority of what pulls me into video games, is storylines. And when those storylines are so dumb and so juvenile that it just makes me not want to play it, that's where I start skipping. And I did that. And that's the first game I've done in probably a good handful of years, where most of the time, if it's a dumb story, I'll at least let it play out and read it, even though I don't want to, because I respect the people that create those games and I respect the story that they're trying to tell. They're just usually not doing a very good job of it. However, with Ollie Ollie World, it is such a poor job, and you can tell they're pushing their personal agenda or their company's personal agenda that a lot of the gaming media sites and things like that try to push and shoehorn these characters and their character traits for no discernible reason that it just threw me off my guard. I was like, wait, what does that have to do with anything? Why are they making a big deal about this? It's not even is something that should be talked about in the first place. Why are they talking about this? So that really kind of pissed me off, and it made me instantly like turn around on the game. I was like, I'm going to give this a fair shot. And then I was like, oh, I know what they're doing. I know why this game was made in the first place. It's got that same art style that all of these indie games that are really trying to push that agenda have. Pastel colors, a pastel color scheme to their games, very soft pastel. Everyone has different hair color styles. Everyone talks like what you think someone on Twitter would talk like. And I just felt like I was the smartest person out of everyone in this group of characters by a country mile. And I was just like, I hate these characters. Like, I don't want to hang out with them. I don't want to skate with them. I don't want to see them on screen. I don't want to hear what they say. I want them gone. I want an empty, completely empty, just leave me alone and let me skate through these levels and don't talk to me ever again. That is how I felt about the characters in this game, and it just made me want to skip every single dialogue choice. And I did skip. By skip, I mean pushing the button as fast as I can, but I can still read part of what's being displayed on the screen. It will show up and kind of go in a very fast motion through the text. So I did read all of the dialogue, but I just didn't care. I didn't give a crap about it, and I hated every single word that they wrote on that screen. It's a really dumb story, and partly, and it's this weird thing, this weird mentality, maybe because I just turned 37 and I really do feel older and more mature, but man, I am really sick of characters who talk like they're 12, but they're actually 40. There is this entire group is a group of adults, but they act like 8-year-olds or 8th graders, whatever. Again, I'm so old that I don't actually understand what age group anyone is anymore. And the reason why is because kids have advanced so much so quickly now. You give an 8-year-old an iPad, they have this, or an iPhone, they have $1,000 piece of electronic equipment in their pocket at all times, and they're 8 years old. Like, what is going on in our society? And I don't want to get a rant on this, but holy crap, kids are growing up way too fast, and no one's a child anymore. And everyone, especially right now, is in this weird man-child phase where it was cute when I was 20. But now that I'm 37, it's really weird. And I don't want to bag on anyone because, hey, like what you like, that's fine. But at the same time, it's kind of a little bit embarrassing when you're, rocking a Star Wars t-shirt. It's like, oh, you like Star Wars? Really? Everyone does, right? So I really hated Ollie Ollie World. I was really mad, and I wanted my money back. I didn't refund the game, obviously, because I played through it, even though it's like 5 hours long. But I felt really burned by that company. Even though Roller Drome was really good, I don't think I'll ever pay a cent for one of their games ever again. Ollie Ollie World really showed me what that company is all about, and I do not want any part of what they have to offer as a company. But like I said, I really did like Roller Drome, but it was asking way too much for the price. I got it on a steep discount, which was nice, but man, those two games couldn't be further apart in my type of wanting to play them style. So another game that I did play, and I was actually really, really excited about this, was last year, earlier in the year last year, a game came out on Game Pass called Destroy All Humans. And it was the remake of Destroy All Humans, which came out on the original Xbox that I played. And I did talk about it on the podcast when that came out, and I played it, and I really, really enjoyed it. They redid everything, they remastered it for modern consoles and PC, and it's a joy to play. I really, really fell in love with that series. So when I finished that game, I went into the second one on the PS2 emulator. There were some graphical glitches, and they did announce that they were going to do a Destroy All Humans 2 remaster. So I went, oh, you know what? They're going to make a Destroy All Humans 2. I am just going to wait for that game to come out and not play the original version on an emulator. So I waited around for it. It got delayed, and then it finally came out right before my birthday. I got back from California last month, and I was really excited. I bought it, and it came with a pre-order multiplayer game, and I tried playing it, and no one was on, so like that multiplayer is straight up dead. But I came back and it was available, and so I played it, the Destroy All Humans 2 real game, and man, okay, let me kind of get into this. So Destroy All Humans is about an alien invasion on Earth. You are this character, this alien called Cryptosporidium, and you have a number attached. I think it's 137 or 138, and you have your, alien leader with you named Pox, P-O-X. So you and Pox in the first game take over Earth, and at the end of the first game, you become the president of the United States by, parading around as a human. You body snatch the president, and now you have this human disguise that you use, but you, as the alien, are now the president of the United States, and no one knows this, except for apparently the Russians. So the Russians, at the end of the first game, know, and like there's this little cutscene that plays out. So I was really excited to kind of see that storyline progress. You start off, apparently it's like 13 years later, like there's a time jump. And I didn't even know this because they don't explain anything at all. This game does such a poor job of setting things up and explaining what's going on. It feels like the storyline was almost an afterthought. And it's a real big bummer because like I said, I love storylines, and these games they fumble. They drop the ball in such a spectacular way. It's like, how did this get out the door? Now, they put a disclaimer at the front, which I hate that there's disclaimers for everything now. Everyone is so soft. Everyone is so sensitive that you can't play a game that was made 15, almost 20 years ago and say, oh, be careful. There's got some words that you might not like now. Like, shut up. Put the game out. It's a remake of a 2005 video game or 2006 video game. Like, we don't need disclaimers for that. Like, just stop being such... Ugh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. I'm getting a little pent up here. But basically, they dropped the ball with explaining how that you are the president, and no one knows it except for the Russians. The Russians are totally fine with it. When you talk to people on the street, in the game, in cutscenes, no one gives a crap that you're an alien. And there are these worlds. You have these levels. So you start in 1969. That's the time period that this game takes place in. You start in basically what is San Francisco. And it's right around the crux of the hippie movement, free love, all this stuff. So most of the people that you interact with in the first part of the game is a bunch of hippies. And I was really big into the 60s and swinging London back in when Austin Powers was out, 1999, 2000, 97, 2000, somewhere around there. I loved Austin Powers. I did all the impressions when I was younger and all that fun stuff. Like, I could not get enough of the 60s. But now I kind of just hate how characterized it is and the way it's portrayed, because it's so over the top that it just doesn't seem faithful at all. I want faithful reenactions. I don't believe this is the exact same time period, but it could be. I haven't played it in a while, but Mafia 3, I think, did an excellent job. Mafia 3 is, holy crap, so underrated. That is an excellent video game. The way that they portray the time period is not over the top. Yes, you've got some classics on the radio, but that's pretty much as far as it goes. They do talk about Vietnam, and they do, cover that a little bit, but oh my gosh, it is such a masterpiece. And yeah, I'm going to use that word for that game, for the way that they build the world. Not the game itself as a masterpiece, because I think that word is really overrated, but it is so well built that you get the sense that you're living in that time period exactly. It's wonderful. So with Destroy All Humans 2, you basically stay in San Francisco for a while. Then you move on to the next area, which is London. And they've got those girls with the mini skirts. They've got the constables, the police running around. Oi, governor, and all that. And it's just, again, it's like, this feels really juvenile. And to their credit, like I said, with the disclaimer, they say we didn't change anything, which is at least good that they didn't change anything to appease anyone. But I think that disclaimer in the beginning doesn't need to be there in the first place. But the locations are just really, really bland. I did not care for it at all. I thought it was just, yeah, I've seen these locations a billion times before. You've got San Francisco, you've got London, you've got Russia, which is basically pointless. I'll talk about that in a little bit. You've got Tokyo, and then you've got the moon. And each one of these levels just feels like there's stuff there. They hide a lot of collectibles. You can collect records for the jukebox, like new records. You can find art pieces. You can find little alien probes and stuff like that. But this is my main thing, is you cannot actually do anything because of the way the game works. When you walk around, if you are in alien form, people will see you and freak out, and then they'll call the cops. And the cops will come and they'll try and kill you. So you have to be very careful of where you go and what you do. You can body snatch. They don't really explain how to body snatch very well in this game, but basically what you do is you select the body snatching power up, you pull the right trigger, and you start targeting people. And what you'll do is you'll use your mind to like send out like these hippie waves to them to kind of brainwash them. And if you brainwash enough people in your vicinity, this bar fills up, and then the screen goes into this psychedelic rainbow cover, and then flowers are floating out of everyone's heads, hearts are popping out of everyone's heads, everyone starts dancing, the cars even bounce up and down like they have hydraulics. And it's kind of interesting the first time it happens, and especially it's totally fine in San Francisco. But when you do it for the entire game, and it's just that same thing when you're in freezing Russia, when you're just walking around the snow, or when you're in London, still can kind of work a little bit in London, I guess. Tokyo feels totally off. It just doesn't look right when you're in those other, on the moon. Like, it just looks really weird, and it wasn't planned out very well. It should have been either each level has a different type of overlay to that, body snatching mechanic. And this isn't even body snatching. This is basically just distraction. It's distraction mode, because then what you can do is you can target a person as everyone is distracted and dancing, and there's like groovy guitar licks going on, psychedelic guitar licks happening on the sound effects. So it's just like kind of like almost aggressively off-putting. You can target someone and then push Y to body snatch them. But what I did is I pushed Y, and I was like, I thought I was body snatching someone. And then I kind of held it down, and nothing, the same thing happened. I was like, that's kind of weird. So I tried doing this a couple of times, and I find out that you have to tap Y multiple times, and you fill up this meter. And if you don't keep tapping, it starts to drain. It's unnecessary in the way that it's designed. But anyways, once you body snatch someone, cool, right? You're in that body. You have a human disguise. Now you can walk freely amongst the humans. However, that human body, that body snatch, has a timer associated with it. So this bar shows up on screen, and it slowly goes down. And it's not really... Graphically, you can understand it. You have like... I'd say like 20 notches, and every several seconds that notch goes down. But I never found out exactly how much time I ever had. It's not a specific amount that I can find, but it's every several seconds. So if I have a full bar, I don't know if I have 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes. And you can continually do the distraction thing and distract people, and then you will rebuild that up. But I didn't find that out until later, because the game never tells you any of this stuff. You wouldn't think, oh, I need to, rebuild this thing. It's just kind of draining. And as you do movements, like I was jumping up and down and sprinting, and I didn't know if it was draining it faster by sprinting or whatever. And you are supposed to explore the world and find all these collectibles and fun things around the world and look at the unique things that they built in this world, but you can't because you don't have the time. You're always on a timer for everything. And it just was like, oh, that sucks. And then the game itself just didn't feel very responsive with some of the controls. It didn't feel like it was a really fun playground to play in. You get your ship at some point, and you like start unlocking ship upgrades and weapons and things like that. But when you have that stuff unlocked, there's not a whole lot you can do with it other than do the missions. And those missions aren't very long. They don't take very long. You have like a death ray that you can use, but the death ray, you use it, you kill the people, and then you're done with the mission. You never feel like you're having fun with the mechanics of the game. You just feel like you're kind of going through the motions, or that's how I felt anyways. So I was really bummed out by the whole experience. And it's also a bummer because they basically have so many storylines going on all at once, and they never really address or wrap them up in any significant way except for one. The one storyline that does get wrapped up is in the course of the game, in the middle of it, when you're in London, you meet up with a Russian super spy, and she's super curvy, super sexy, and you got the hots for her, and you hit on her through the entire game. And Crypto, that Jack Nicholson impression gets old so quickly. It got old in the first game, and I went into the second game and like, oh, they're still going with it. All right. But his lines are so drawn out that it just takes forever for him to say anything. And again, I love story. I stuck with it. I didn't rush through the audio, but man, I just wanted to pull out my phone and wait for him to finish his line. He would drone on and on and on. And it's all these very, very cheap innuendos that feel like a child wrote them. And it's such a bummer because it's like, I totally understand why people hate this crap, because it's so basic. It is so by the books. It is so the first thing that you think, that's what they wrote. It doesn't feel creative at all or interesting. It's the thing everyone's thinking. If a game does that, you've dropped the ball creatively. If your dialogue is the dialogue that the person immediately thinks of, you usually, again, there's always exceptions and caveats, but basically, if you're writing a joke and it's the first joke that someone thinks of, or the style of joke someone thinks of, you really aren't that creative. It's just a bummer. Like, I could give a million examples. One would be like, oh, if Crypto is holding a very, very big gun near his crotch, what do you think? What type of joke do you think that they're going to go with? You know exactly, and it's lazy writing. So I didn't really like Crypto. Like, I don't like the character I'm playing as, and that's a huge issue. The interaction between Crypto and the Russian spy, I think her name is Natalia, like, it's actually a really interesting dynamic between them, because she really just doesn't want to have anything to do with his advances. She never really talks about it, but then she slowly, he wears her down in a way that's kind of funny. And she slowly starts going, yeah, I know you have the hots for me. I know I'm super sexy. Okay, I'll give you that one. That was a funny joke or whatever. And then they slowly, over the course of the rest of the game, build up a rapport to where she actually likes him. He actually likes her. He gets jealous because one of her old flames / super spy coworkers comes along. And it's a really interesting. So I did like some of the story. There are other portions where, like I said, they just drop the ball so much that it's like, how did they even do that? So basically, to wrap this up, they have, at the beginning of the game, you and Pox are supposed to grab DNA from around Earth and take it back to your homeworld. Pox is physically on the mothership floating above Earth. You are down on the ground in San Francisco. He has like a remote control hologram of himself that you get to talk to while he's on the mothership. Like I said, the Russians know that you're an alien somehow, and so they find out that there's a mothership hanging up above Earth. They shoot a rocket at it, and it explodes, killing Pox. But right before it explodes, Pox uploads his consciousness into the little robot guy, and so now he's like this AI, basically this uploaded consciousness in a robot form. And you talk to him about how we need to get back to our home planet. And so the first thing, all you do is basically you're trying to thwart the Russians because they know and they're going to try and kill you. And the Russians are supposed to be trying to brainwash everyone in San Francisco, all the hippies, with this lemonade called Revelade. And it's supposed to, it's toxic and supposed to brainwash them. But that's all you kind of do with that mission until the very end when you go, oh, we need to actually phone home. We need to phone our planet. And you do this whole big long thing where Pox is trying to set up a support beam or a beam of some sort and talk about all of this stuff. And then he gets in contact with a officer of some sort, and he doesn't believe him that he's Pox, the leader of the Furons or whatever. And you're sitting around taking out tanks, military tanks, and all this stuff. And then after that, the thing you basically get hung up on, and that's the end of the storyline. You never figure out how to get home or phone home or do anything. And that's in the first level. The whole point is you are supposed to go home. Your whole mission is supposed to go collect DNA and go home. And then it just gets dropped for the next one, which is the Russian KGB agents are actually, the Revelate is mutating people into these monsters. And the London Prime Minister guy, or the head of the police force, is going to help you, but then you get double crossed. And so the Prime Minister guy kidnaps you, and the KGB agent is a monster, and then you fight both of them, and then you kill the London police officer and you kill the KGB agent who is a monster, and then you go to Russia and the sexy Russian spy is now there and you're helping her and you're hitting on her. And then you go to Tokyo for some unknown reason. I don't even know. I played this game in like 3 days and I don't remember half of the story because it goes nowhere. You find a doctor, you find the scientist to help you do something. He gets killed. Like, the storyline progressively gets interesting and then they do nothing with it and they forget about it. And then there's another storyline that starts and then nothing happens with it and gets dropped. And then another storyline happens and nothing happens and then it gets dropped. It's insane that this game got made the way it did, because I think if they stuck to 2 storylines instead of like 8, it would have been such a tighter experience. Start with trying to get home. Do the Russian spy thing where Natalia shows up, and then maybe at the very end have the twist that happens where, and again, spoiling this, 2006 game, but most people didn't play it. I didn't play it. I didn't even know that there was a Destroy All Humans 2 until like 2009. So, and that's because it came out in 2006. The 360 was already out for a good 7 or 8 months, at least 9 months maybe, and then the Wii and PS3 were coming out like within the next couple of months. So I was not, and it was PS2 exclusive, I believe. I don't believe it's on Xbox. So I didn't even know that this game existed because I wasn't even paying attention to PS2 games in 2006. I wasn't even paying attention to PS2 games in 2004, really, except for San Andreas, I think. But other than that, basically, it's an interesting game. I was really bummed out by how not fun it was. The mechanics were so fun in Destroy All Humans 1. And then it just kind of does the same thing, but not as interesting. You can't explore because you can never figure out the body snatching mechanics. It always drains, so you're not encouraged to go explore the way that you want. Or else people are just going to continue freaking out and attacking you. You can't have fun with the saucer because there's no real point to it. You can't really do anything other than the missions, and the missions are so short that it's just not really that fun to do. It's a big ball drop. It's a bummer. But I'm going to take just a quick break here, just a couple minutes, and then I will come back and talk about my newest big purchase.
Pizza Power!
Okay, so the next game that I want, or the next thing that I want to talk about is I finally got a PS5. I got it not for my birthday, but for my birthday. I got it actually a couple weeks ago, and it was only thanks to my Discord server because they basically showed me a link to follow a Twitter bot or whatever. And after about a week of following a Twitter bot, I did find a link saying, hey, there are PS5s available. Click this link and get it. And they only had a disc version, which is like $100 more. And I didn't want it. It just makes that thing so much bigger. So I did not want a disc version. I wanted digital only. I'm not going to, as stupid as the price is for digital or even digital games or just modern day video games. They're trying to push that $70 mark that it sounds like more and more publishers are going to go because of inflation. Like, it's a bummer, but hey, whatever, right? We can't really do anything about it. We can't fight the power anymore. There's no way you can. So I didn't want a disc version anyways. I wanted the digital version. It's going to save me $100. And there was a bundle for Horizon Forbidden West, which is the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. That's the bundle that I wanted, the digital version of that. But it was all sold out and it was only a disc version. And I tried getting it, but then it was sold out. And I was like, crap, okay, whatever. A couple days later, I was sitting down. I was doing work. I was down here streaming for work. And then I went upstairs to have lunch. And then I'm sitting there eating and I'm looking through my phone. And I see, oh, yeah, that's right, Twitter. Let's see if that bot has updated anything. PS5, available right now, like 3 minutes ago that they dropped that tweet. And I was like, oh, okay, let me try. I highly doubt I'm going to get it. It's 3 minutes. They're still stupidly hard to find. Let me try. And I was able to get one. And I was so stinking happy about it. And it came really quickly. I think I paid an extra $20 to have it shipped like next day. So I got it like in a day, like 2 days basically. And it shows up at my door. And I got the digital version with the bundle packing game of Horizon. And I was just so happy. I unboxed it. I said, oh my gosh, almost 2 years later, and I have this PS5. And I'm not a big console guy. I didn't even know where to put the thing because I didn't have space for it because I was like, well, I can put it in my server rack, but my server rack's in the basement and I'm going to play everything on the projector. And so having that console is going to be a little bit hard if it's in a server rack because that's basically a Faraday cage and it's just kind of a mess with wireless signals for the controller. That's really the issue. And I'm not going to play wirelessly or anything like that, or wired. I would never play a wired controller at this point in my life. So I was kind of bummed. I had to figure out what I was going to do with it. I put it up on our mantle where the projector is, but holy crap, that thing is so big. Okay. I'm happy I got the PS5. I've wanted it. I mainly bought it because I wanted to play Horizon Forbidden West because I still need to finish the first one, but I wanted to play that because that's new and came out this year. I want to play it for Game of the Year, but I also want to play God of War Ragnarok, the new God of War, because I really like those games. I really like the God of War series. 1, 2, and 3 are fantastic games. I really enjoyed them at the time. I think I wouldn't groan at the replaying them, but I wouldn't find them as interesting as I did when I was younger, when I played them back in 2006, 2009 for 3. And then when God of War 2018 came out, oh my gosh, that was a fun game. You know, just beating the crap out of the dude, having that more Norse mythology, just everything about it was really well done and interesting. And then they were saying they're going to come out with a sequel and it's going to be PS5 only. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need a PS5. That's why I wanted a PS5, because I want to play God of War in November. And I'm super excited that I actually can. So the other reason why I wanted to play it is because no one will shut up about the controller and Astro's Playroom, which is the pack-in game. I love pack-ins. I think it's phenomenal that they did a pack-in game for that system. I got the bundle too, so I also got the new Horizon game as well. So I'm super stoked about that, but I'm not going to play that until I finish the first one. But I remember when I was still listening to Giant Bomb back in 2020, and they did the Game of the Year stuff in 2021, actually. But they would not shut up about Astro's Playroom like it was the greatest thing on earth. And I didn't really watch most of it. I didn't want to watch their coverage of PS5 because I want my own personal memory first. I want to live those experiences of opening up the console for the first time, checking out the UI, just learning how the dashboard works, listening to all the cool sounds and music and stuff that they have, setting all my stuff up, learning it on my own. And then later in the evening of the first day or the second day or the third day, then I'll go back and watch coverage of the new consoles. Well, I didn't do that because one, I don't watch Giant Bomb anymore because it's not Giant Bomb. And two, I kind of watched it when it was first out, but I had it on the background for a little bit of Astro's Playroom. And then I went, I'm just going to wait until I get it. Because I was thinking, oh, well, we've got, Christmas time, so it's going to be a little bit hard to get, but in a couple months, I'll be able to get one. Fast forward 2.5, almost 2 years later, and I still couldn't get one until just now, but I got one. So I cracked open the PS5, I set it up, I went through the menu and dashboard, and I went, okay, it's very similar to PS4. And then I loaded up Astro's Playroom, and I was left very, very disappointed with it. It's fine for what it is, but I did not think it was all that spectacular. People were crapping their pants over this game. People were losing their minds at how amazing the model of the little eye toy that you unlock, or the original PlayStation disc that's black, or the PS3 console. Like, people just lost their minds over the nostalgia of what this game brings to the table. But the game itself is very, very, very boring, very uninteresting, very by the numbers, very linear as well. And again, it feels, and this is totally fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but it feels like it's marketed towards children, which it absolutely is, because they've got Astro, which is basically their version of the Minions at this point. And tell me I'm wrong. Tell me Astro is not their Sony's version of the Minions, because they totally are. And Rabbids is the Ubisoft version of the Minions, even though Rabbids were around first. But basically, it's just one of those things where I went, if I had a kid, I'm sure they would be laughing their heads off at the little Astro version of Kratos and Atreus, swimming or fishing in the first level. Or they would be laughing their heads off at the crashed plane where Astro Nathan Drake is trying to climb up the plane crashed into the side of a cliff. Like, I totally get it. But it's a very shallow dressing of, hey, remember this thing from this thing? Remember that character from this thing? Remember this from this? Like, just, it's throwing nostalgia at people, and people ate it up. And that just doesn't impress me all that much. It's nice to look at. It was interesting to go, oh yeah, that's that character. Oh, that's that, scene from The Last of Us. Oh, that's from Resident Evil. Oh, they're reenacting, what is that one character? Oh, I'm blanking on it, but like they're reenacting, Horizon Zero Dawn. Okay, cool. But that's not the one I was thinking of. I was thinking of the PS3 launch title, which was the girl with the red hair, not Nanako, Nico? I can't remember. But anyways, it's basically like a quick greatest hits version. It's very shallow in its gameplay. It's free too with every PS5, so you can't hark on it too much. One thing that I was really kind of upset about is everyone talks about the controller, and they talk about the adaptive buttons or triggers. And I had no idea what they're talking about. I'm like, haptic feedback is a thing in other controllers. That's not what it is, even though that's what I was led to believe it was, because no one can actually define stuff anymore. They can never describe stuff in a meaningful way. So these adaptive triggers are basically triggers, but they have mechanics in them to where they control the pull of the trigger. So in the game, here's a couple examples. In the game, you are running around in the hub world, and you have this coin machine where you put a coin in, you deposit a bunch of coins, and then you have like the little ball that pops out, and then you have to open up the little ball with the toy inside, right? Like at the grocery store. So you deposit your coins in, and you are controlling these two arms, big mechanical arms. You deposit your coin in, the ball pops out, flows up into the air, and you grab it with one of your mechanical arms, giant mechanical arms, and you hold the ball in. And you're supposed to pull the trigger to crush the ball and open up the prize inside. Well, when I pulled the trigger, it was a very short throw of the trigger. Like you pull it just a little bit and it stops. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. I didn't really notice it at first, but I was pulling it and then it stopped. And then I was like, And I pulled it a little bit. I tried pulling it a little bit more, but it was so hard stopped. It felt like the controller trigger was broken. And I was like, oh, crap, did I get a busted controller? That sucks. I'm not super bummed out, but I'm bummed out enough that it would be, like on my mind for a couple of days. It didn't ruin it wouldn't ruin my experience with the PS5, but it would be a bummer. And so I just dropped it. I just walked out of the room for it and then went and did something else. I did another level or two and it went and gotten more coins. And I was like, maybe the game's glitched or something. Several levels later, I get to this, what is it? It's like this jungle level and you're climbing and throughout the game, you get like these suits that you get to, get into, and one of them is like a monkey. I hate monkeys, first of all. So you climb on these rocks and you are supposed to pull yourself up and you have to kind of pull the trigger really hard and it will allow the monkey to jump up and grab the next rock. And it teaches you the mechanics of the adaptive triggers, where they are coded to a point where they are programmed to stop at a certain point. And if you pull them harder, you break the threshold and then you have the full control of the trigger. I didn't know that until I got to that point. So I went back to the ball machine, did another ball, got the thing, and I pulled the trigger and it cracked open. But I felt like I was about to break the trigger. Like it stops, and then I'm pulling harder and it goes. And I was like, that's way too aggressive. Like, it's a neat idea, but holy crap, that is way too aggressive to make it feel like I'm breaking the controller when I'm pulling that trigger to break open the thing. And yeah, there's some tactile feedback to it, which is interesting, but not enough to make me feel like I'm breaking the trigger. I did not like that. So I played the game, I finished it, and I went, wow, that was nothing special. Why were people talking about it for Game of the Year? Like, I was just disappointed. And then we've got the game that I really want to play, which is Horizon Forbidden West. But I never finished the first one. I didn't buy it on PS4 until way later on. Until it was about $20 with the DLC. And I bought it on PS4 and I never actually played it on PS4. For whatever reason, I just don't play console games. Like, I have a PC. Why would I play a PS4 that was at the time? And again, people forget this all the time. PS4 and Xbox One were both out of the box obsolete compared to a PC. They were so underpowered out of the box on launch day compared to a PC that I very rarely played any of those games on that system. It's really interesting to look at my digital library for PS4 because I only buy PS4 games digitally anyways, or Xbox games. And when I hooked up the PS5 and it says, here's your library of games of things that you can download. Like, I saw a bunch of launch titles. I saw a couple specific other titles, and then all the free games that you get with PS Plus or whatever. or PSN Network, like all of those free ones. And I was like, dude, I think I bought like 4 or 5 games on retail main games on the PS4. Half of them were like games that I didn't even play. The Last of Us Part 2, the remake of Medieval on PS4, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Those 3 games I didn't even play on or boot up on the PS4, and I owned them. So that's also why I wanted a PS5, is because I wanted to play these games. But at the time, when I bought the Horizon Zero Dawn bundle with the DLC on PS4, I thought I was going to play it, and I just didn't have the time. I was traveling a lot and doing a lot of work. And also got married around that time, I believe, 2016, 2017. And so when I finally was going to sit down and play it, they announced, Horizon Zero Dawn is actually coming out on PC. And people lost their minds because it was like the first Sony game that was coming to PC. And that seemed weird. So I was like, well, shoot, I already own it, but I'll get it on PC if it means I can play on PC and I don't have to hook up my PS4 somewhere, because it was just sitting in a box collecting dust at that point. So I was really excited and I started playing it. And at the launch, there was a lot of issues with it. Yeah, I kind of got into a couple of those, like some weird bugs, some graphical technical issues, but no hard crashes or game stopping bugs like that. But I did want to play it on PC, so I played it on PC. I got about 15 hours in, I think 7 to 15 hours through that game, and I just stopped playing it. Again, being busy, doing all this stuff, and I never picked it back up again. But now that I have a PS5 and I have the sequel sitting on my hard drive on my PS5, I started playing it again. I got a couple hours deep into it a couple weeks ago, right before I went to California. Came back from California dealing with some stuff. So I think it was last night I booted it back up, and I dumped a few more hours into it last night, and I'll do so tonight as well. And now I'm determined to finish that game so I can play Forbidden West. And I'm really excited because I do like the game. I think it looks great. I think the setting is really interesting with the this is Earth, and humanity has been basically, struggling to survive because of the dinosaurs that are and animals that are all mechanical. I got to the point in the storyline where they talk about Zero Dawn and, what's going on there. And I'm starting to uncover a little bit more, and it's actually really interesting. So I'm very, very psyched about that game. But with that, I'm going to take just another quick break, and then I will come back and talk about what I'm looking forward to. Right, back once again. So now I kind of want to talk about what I'm looking forward to in the next coming couple of weeks here as I play more video games. The first thing that I'm really excited about is Rocksmith. Now, I bought Rocksmith when it first came out on the 360 back in 2011, I want to say. 2010. It was 2010 because Arkham City came out that day as well. I'm going to check that really quick because I can't remember if that's true or not. Arkham City release date. 2011. Yes, it's correct. So October of 2011, Rocksmith came out. And if you don't know what Rocksmith is, it's basically a game in the vein of Guitar Hero, Rock Band, but it uses a actual USB cable that has a 3/4 inch jack on it that you actually plug your guitar into. And so you use your real guitar to play songs. And it's got a highway, but it's a little bit different. And it is not like scoring, like there's scores and stuff like that, but it's not used as an entertainment tool. It is, or an entertainment game. It's more a tool to use to help people learn guitar. And I am terrible at anything musical. I have no musical bones in my body. It's a real big bummer. I've always wanted to learn guitar. I've owned a couple over the course of my life, and I try starting it for like a week or two, but especially with my lifestyle and the way that I work, it's really hard to be consistent in anything because learning guitar takes consistency. And when I had the store, I couldn't just pick up a guitar and play all the time. And especially at that point in my life, I was dating, I was hanging out with friends all the time, I was gone half the time, and I was also running a business. So I didn't really have the time to sit down and go, all right, I'm going to learn guitar. I'm going to sit here and practice for 2 hours every day and get blisters in calluses on my fingers. I just didn't have the time back then. Fast forward all the way until last year, and I built this studio, and I said, I'm going to stream a lot more, and I have a podcast, and I want to learn how to play guitar finally. I got my guitar sitting right there. Why don't I pick it up and learn how to play? So I couldn't find the cable that came with my 360 version. I might have sold it. I might have had it lost in the flood. Like, I don't know what happened to it. So I went on Amazon and I just bought the thing. I bought a cheaper version that was like third party, and it didn't work. And so I said, screw it. I'm just going to actually buy the real version because I don't want to mess around with stuff. Like, there's patches to get it to work, and you can patch DLC. I just want to learn how to play guitar. I'm not going to sit here and play Rush. I'm not going to play, Led Zeppelin or anything like that. I just want to learn how to play guitar so that I can use this, guitar that I bought over a decade ago. So I sat down and started, and I was going through, and I'm like, dude, I'm kind of starting to get this. This is great. And then business picked up. And I had to travel to California once or twice a month. And you just can't learn guitar when you're traveling, 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. So I stopped playing it. And then earlier last year, around my birthday, I believe, they announced, hey, we're making a new version of Rocksmith, because the only one that you can buy right now is the 2014 version, the 2014 remastered version of Rocksmith. And I was like, I own it, great, but holy crap, that's an older version. And that version was when Windows 7 was still around. Windows 10 wasn't even around. And now we're on Windows 11. So like, it's an outdated PC game at this point. And so having a modern version built for Windows 10 or Windows 11, like, I'm all for, sign me up. How much is it? And I've been waiting around, and they find, like, I got invited months and months ago to the beta when it was supposed to be launched back in like March. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was gone the week that the beta was happening, so I didn't even get to download and play it. And then I was like, well, no big deal. I'm going to buy it anyways. It's Rocksmith. I want to learn guitar. And then they didn't say anything. They've been radio silent on that game since then. I don't know what the crap happened, but it got delayed. And then out of the blue, I get an email like 2 or 3 days ago saying Rocksmith comes out tomorrow. And it's called Rocksmith Plus. I was like, awesome. I can't wait. I get up, I finish work, I go and try and buy it. I'm like, where is it on the store? I can't find it on Steam. It's a Ubisoft exclusive. Okay, cool, whatever. And then it's like, okay, well, there's these tiers. You can buy 1 month of access, 2 months of access, 3 months of access, or a full year. And I went, wait, what? It's a subscription game. Come on, man. I was so bummed when I saw that. Like, I'm pissed. And since it's my birthday, I'm like, you know what? Whatever. That'll be my birthday present. I'm going to buy, I'll buy 3 months of this subscription, and then I get, or I think it's 6 months, and I get 3 months free or something. I can't remember what it exactly is. But basically, I can get X amount of months, spend like $50, whatever. If I actually use it and learn guitar, maybe I'll subscribe more, but I'm kind of bummed. And then I went, I still do have that free, or I have the game. I have Rocksmith 2014 in my Steam library. I don't pay anything for it. It's not a subscription. I can just go play that. And I started loading it up and I was like, all right, cool. Oh, my computer blue screen. Blue screen? I literally just rebuilt this thing 12 hours ago. Why is this computer blue screening? I have never even seen a blue screen on this computer that I'm streaming on right now, and I use it every day for work. I rebuilt it because I had a hardware issue with my capture card, which has four HDMI ports. But other than that, I've never seen a blue screen. It's just the capture card got screwed up because of the electrical issue. So I'm sitting there and I'm racking my brain. I uninstall it, I reinstall it, I reboot. And I'm like, it's crashing. That's super weird. Well, I have a PC upstairs, or technically downstairs. That's the projector. Hooked up the projector. I'll just do that. So I do that, crashes again. I'm like, what is going on? This is a completely different set of hardware with a completely different operating system. I can't play this game. And I look up the discussions on the Steam, the discussion for the game on Steam, and everyone's like, the update broke this game. And I went, update? What update? Oh, they updated the game with Rocksmith Plus as well. So they put out Rocksmith Plus, but then they updated Rocksmith 2014 for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe there's like some connection or something that they want to put in saying, hey, go buy Rocksmith Plus instead. And the update completely ruined Rocksmith 2014. So I can't even play the game that I want to play, that I own, because their update killed it for their new version, which is a subscription model. So that feels very underhanded and sneaky. And I'm kind of pretty pissed about everything going on at Ubisoft right now. Like, I really liked Ubisoft as a company. It was my favorite publisher for a while there. They're making just amazing games. Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the Trials series, Far Cry, Assassin's Creed Origins, Rayman. Like, they were doing in all the Tom Clancy stuff, Division and Division 2. They were on their game for a while. And over the last couple of years, oh boy, they have just gone off a cliff. Like, I really don't know what to think about that company right now. And this has nothing to do with the crap that's going on internally with them. I just think that their products are being crap right now. And I can almost totally point to why that's happening, which big old China company bought them, or bought a gigantic 49.9% stake in that company. So there's definitely, I'm sure, some mandates going on saying these need to happen. These things need to be in these games. These games can't be put out, blah, blah, blah. But it's a big bummer. And the other game that I'm really looking forward to playing is Tunic, because it is our Couch Money game of the month for September. And I really don't like those styles of games, but Tunic is such an interesting take on it because it has that art style. I thought it was basically going to be Zelda with a fox, but it is basically, Dark Souls with a fox. So I don't like those Dark Soul mechanics, but I'm willing to give it a try because I did play some of it. I put like 3 or 4 hours into... probably about 3 hours into that game when it first came out. But I just put 90 hours into Elden Ring at that point. I didn't want to play another game in that very similar style. So I put it down, and it's been coming up over the last couple of months for Game of the Month every time. So I was finally like, I'll play Tunic, whatever. And so it won our Game of the Month, and I'm really excited about playing it. But Also, I'm kind of not wanting to play it because, like I said, there's been a couple games that I want to take priority. Destroy All Humans was one, even though I didn't really care for it. I wanted to play Destroy All Humans too. I'm just blanking on the name right now, but Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, I want to play that over Tunic, but Tunic is the game of the month, and it is almost, halfway through the month at this point. I really should be playing at least some of it, but I need to be in the mindset for that game, and I just have not gotten there yet. But I'll get there. And with that, that's going to do it for this episode of Game or Die podcast. I have been your host, Ryan Moore. You can always check out my website, gameordie.net. That's where I have all my reviews and everything. So reviews for Destroy All Humans 2, review for Rollerdrome. Any game that I finish, I write a review for. There's a lot of other websites that will write reviews based on a couple hours of gameplay, thinking that they can talk about it. There's one that I actually read very constantly because he puts out reviews pretty much every couple of days. And it's like, there's no, like, I think his review release schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it's like, there's no way you beat all of these games in this amount of time. There's no way. But he writes so much that it's really interesting to read his thoughts on these games, but he's not beating them. And I don't think you can really review something very well if you don't finish it. That's really hard with video games because they're so big. So that's another topic for another time. But I always want to say thank you to everyone who listens to this podcast or watches on the live stream as well. It's not always the most extreme or exciting. Sometimes I get heated and say certain things, but again, it's my podcast. I can say what I want. I think there needs to be a lot more of that in the world right now. And I really enjoy talking about video games. And that's all I'm going to talk about on these podcasts is pretty much video games. A little bit of personal stuff because, hey, it's my podcast. I can do what I want. But whatever, I'll do what I want. But I want to say thank you to everyone who listens and watches. And also, again, check out the website. Gameordie.net is the website. And I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching and listening.